are well. Ngwane ndiyazi bamhlamba nizongiphendula. Nibe right baniko right. Sizaba right. The first song is entitled Sinamalungelo. This is Lufu Collective. Enjoy. Spirit on lead guitar, Hope on soprano vocal, Tiriso on alto and tenor, lead vocal, and my name is Week as Zulu Collective. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be back very soon. I hope you'll still be here.
How's the day been? How's the week been? Thank you for still hanging in there with us. We really, really appreciate it. I noted in 2016. My name is Leu Mashila. I'm not in the program for this panel, but I've been asked to assist in terms of facilitating this conversation with two very talented and brilliant literary and political minds. So I'd like to invite Panashe Chigumanzi to the stage. We all know very well, curator of Abantu Book Festival, published author of the award-winning novel Sweet Medicine, founder of Vanguard South Africa, scholar, agitator, Fismasfolist, all of the above. We love you. And then we've also got Unathi Kondile, who I am ashamed to admit, aside from knowing him and briefly, I think, tweeting him on social media, I didn't realize the extent of his incredible contribution to the world of words. So Unathi, for those of you who may be as ignorant as I was 3 hours ago, Unathi did his MA at UCT in Media Studies and went on to resuscitate the very first newspaper written in isiXhosa called He is now the founder of the Xhosa version of Isolezwe. So Unathi, I think, challenges the idea of what mainstream media is, you know? We look at the hegemony of white people, white liberals, white supremacy in mainstream media. Certainly my understanding of mainstream media is largely defined by those kinds of institutions, but actually, that's not where the numbers are. The numbers are with Ukhozi FM, the numbers are with Isolezwe. So there's a whole narrative that exists that has huge traction, but is not given credit, is not given headspace in the national imagination by those of us who are still colonized by the Star and other such publications, etc., etc., etc. Panashe will explain the idea behind the frame for this conversation. Yeah, I would love to hear that. I think we'd all love to hear that.
Yeah, well, I just want to wait for Karabo. If you can just introduce her once again. Thank you so much.
Karabo, who's been doing our sign language translations every single day. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So I think 2016 is a very interesting year, very auspicious occasion for us. It's the 100th, the centenary anniversary or centenary celebration of Soul Plaatji's Native Life Native Life, that's what it was called, and this was a very important book. It was published in 1916. It was after the Land Act of 1913. Of course, we know the year before that, 1912, was when the ANC, well, not called the ANC then, was founded. And he had a survey who went, going around apparently on his bicycle around South Africa, documenting what native life in South Africa is or was at that time. And I suppose since this year has been quite a heavy year, I think all the memes are about 2016 being the most. It just needs to be cancelled, it needs to end.
My value.
And I think 2015, 2016 have been very, very heavy for many of us. Particularly, there are many Fallists in the audience, and we keep saying Abantu would not be here without Fallism. And just thinking about with Fallism, it's Black Lives Matter, it's Trump, it's state capture, but all kinds of things are finally surfacing in a way that we thought was interesting to think about what does native life mean for us in this period. And I think it has also been really the best way to, if we're thinking about saying this year we've gone through the most, I think it has been some of the most intense optimism I've ever had as a black person, but also some of the intense disappointments. If we're honest about ourselves, many of us who have been for this at various, whether you're at the periphery, whether you are on the forefront, it really is something that takes you through a lot. And in particular, about whether this will all end. This being, the state of being black, as Tato says, to black, and what that experience is. Something that we were really, really interested in and thinking, I think, as we close the panel, what does it mean to be black? We just came from Nigeria, and a very different expression of blackness for us who live in these settler colonies. I'd never traveled, at least in Africa, I've only traveled in Southern Africa, which is mostly the former settler colonies. But I'd never been to sort of East Africa and West Africa, so that's your Ugandas, your Nigeria, and the idea of, black is, what is that, right? You South Africans, you Southern Africans just have this obsession with race. And we had a panel at Care Festival where they said the irony of Black Lives Matter. They didn't understand why we're going on about this thing all the time.
Because everybody's black that side.
So, I mean,
so what's the
Olga is black, the person who oppresses you is black. So it's a very different, someone with this panel was at the festival telling me, well, why are you only here right now, South Africans? We don't understand why you keep having these issues. Yeah. So to see how, in one way, it's very freeing to see black people who don't understand. I mean, the week that the hair issue happened, I think on the Sunday, I came back from Uganda and went to a school, and it was black girls, I've written about this, who they had all these afros and all these different kinds of styles, looked absolutely stunning. And I said, wow, can I take a picture of you? You look amazing. And I tried to explain that, when I was your age, I was not allowed to do this kind of thing. And it looked, they were very smart. They could maybe intellectually understand what this is, but they didn't have the visceral understanding. And that, for me, just seeing what it is, to see black people flourish without reference to whiteness, has been really great to see that in other parts of the continent. It's also annoying when they don't understand why we go through these things. They say we're just looking for issues and that kind of thing. So I think that's just to give an overall understanding of what it is that we're thinking about when we're thinking about Lakes of Life in 2016.
Let's talk about history and continuities, Unati. You've resuscitated a paper that is like 100 years old, maybe more. So, I mean, if you think about that first wave of Africans to be educated in missionary schools, to go through that process of, I guess, being like whiteified, that we have all been perfected in now, to go through that, and then to create a newspaper, to create a political party like the ANC, to produce intellectual output that resisted colonialism, apartheid, sometimes in problematic ways as well, because our elders are not perfect, as we are also not perfect. Our children will criticize us, and do criticize us right now, I'm interested in kind of how you map the continuities, why is it an important creative and political project to resuscitate this newspaper? And what are the connections, what are the commonalities between the position that black people occupy right now in South Africa and the position that black people occupied then that led to the birth of this newspaper?
ngombuzo wakho kodwa ke ndawutyatyatula ngesingesi ndibuyisile babulela ngakuwe Thando ke ngokusipha iqonga loba sikwazi ukuxuxa lo mba ubaleka kangaka ukuba singobani iincwadi zethu zesintu zisuka phi zizawuyaphi njani nini. The importance of resuscitating these newspapers. Let me first start with the native life of Uso Black in 1916, who was a journalist. Editor of Koranta and Utsela. they used to use these biblical verses first just to hide their messages before they went into their issues. But and he was fluent in about 7 of South Africa's languages, something which I hope I will get to. So, and if you look at the things that they were dealing with back then, there isn't much of a difference to today. I mean, I used to have this teacher in high school who used to tell me, don't tell me about things that have changed. Things have not changed. And if you really look at the things they were really complaining about, freedom, the issues, land, their freedom, it's still the very same things that they were going on about. So in 2010, I embarked on a research project of trying to do postgraduate qualification in seeing the feasibility of these newspapers as a source. Why is Imboza Benzundu no longer existent? How can we bring these things back? So I went and I dug. I went to something called World Bank of Newspapers online. I think if you're in a university, you'll be better positioned to access those catalogs online. Or go to a fort. We've got an archive center which has got these old newspapers. I'm not sure about you, Lisa. Many people have been complaining about that. But so I found these old newspapers from way back then in Daba, dating back to 1856. And then there was this Gidime Samakhosa, which was started by James Stewart, who was a missionary, handing in Lovedale. But he handed this project over to William Gola and John Tengo, who then became the editor of Imboza Benzundu. He became the editor of Imboza Benzundu because he was disgruntled with the Christian narrative that was going on in this teaching, which was called the Kappa Express back then. Whoa! But I loved the Kappa Express. I loved the Kappa Express because I looked at what was in the English edition of the Kappa Express and the Xhosa edition of the Kappa Express. They would translate a few lines, and then the story just becomes something completely different. And I realized that they were trying to use this newspaper to get through, to pass on their messages.
So there was a subversion also.
Yes, yes. They understood that they were within a system that was not for them, but they had to get funding. They had to work with these missionaries and push their agendas. We're doing the very same thing today. Today I run Isolezoles Trust. If I had the money, I did this teaching Trust for about 2 years, beating it up and, paying for it out of my pocket for all those years. And it was a celebrated project and everyone was going on about how great it is and awards were thrown at it.
Right.
And, you look around, you're being celebrated, but you're broke. This thing is
You know that story.
But this precocious occupation with being successful, the arrivals, we're always at the arrivals turning out. So that frustrated me. I was doing something that I knew was great and it was, someone who was seeing its importance in society, but it was beating my pocket out. So I had to Jabavu, who started Imboza Benzundu through funding from overseas and through the Queens of Swaziland. We had to go and get funding out there. So I also had to go out of my way and find a company that would support this. And there was independent newspaper in South Africa, which does this stuff. And luckily it's owned by someone who now understands what I want to do and allows me to play. Like, make this happen. And for those who know this whatever they know that it's nothing like anything that it needs to impress. It's its own stories, its own agenda in this thing. So if we were to pasilande imbali yethu kasisuka phela namaphepha esixhosa nosoplaji nenguquko ezikhoyo ngo-2016, not much has changed. We're still at the very same place where they were.
You mentioned when we were preparing for this discussion that during that time, 150 years ago, there were so many women who were also writing under pseudonyms. Can you talk about that?
Yes. Yesterday I attended a panel where they were talking about Miriam Tladinonoli Jabavu. And there were other female writers way back then. And I'll make an example of Nonsizi Ngwane, who wrote for Imvo Zabenzundu in 1896 and 1897, and then went on to write for Umteteli, which was run by Marshall McDyke, the husband of Charlotte McDyke. So she was a prolific writer who wrote poetry in his papers. But the one thing I've learned, I'm not a big fan of poetry. Apologies.
Sorry for you. Sorry.
But I was converted.
Shine for you. Shine.
I was converted when I read his poems. You know, in my office every single week, there's someone who comes with a new book, and his poems are like, and I think last year I decided to open these books and read them. I decided to read Mibongo Yomkweto. And then I realized, hang on, this is not just a poem. These people were actually writing in a certain style. They were relaying a message. It didn't have to rhyme, didn't have to follow any formulaic prose or any forms of, you know, all these things that they attach to what poetry is. They were passing on their messages through this. And at the time, it was a very safe way of doing this. And so all Nonsizi Ngwane were doing that. She was a feminist way back in 1897, talking about amalungelo abafana, talking about how do they become proud and all those things. So they existed and they used pseudonyms. Why am I coming like Prism? That's a pen name. So now when you have writers or people, academics compiling these books, it's hard for them to understand or know if it is actually Nonsizi Ngwane. Who's this Prism? Odiyo Soga were using pseudonyms as well. Yeah, to use, you know. So I don't know why they were not using their real names, maybe for safety issues, but we are exactly where we were.
So the conversation is about the state of the native in 2016, ladies and gentlemen. I want to unpack what 2016, probably all of the issues that started really, like you said, in 2015, you know, that have kind of unraveled and really jumped off this year. I want to get into that, but sticking with the subject of gender, because I think there's something to be worked through here, right? You mentioned Miriam Tadi. Miriam is currently hospitalized. She's got no surviving family. She's got a lawyer in Kenya who is governing her estate and her affairs. Because she doesn't have any living relatives, and this person who manages her estate is Kwako, Kenya, she cannot even get out of the hospital, the facility that she's in right now, right? So we sit and we write big pieces and papers on people, but then you look at the quality of their lives, their lived experience. And you can say this over and over and over and over again. Bessie Head, Brenda Fassi, Busim Tlongo, the trajectory of black creatives, particularly black women creatives. You know, you're gonna end up either with mental illness or isolated or poor, alone, dysfunctional, or all of the above, any combination of that, you know? So I want to talk to you, Panashe, about self-care in 2016. You've had an extraordinary year, and I think it kind of, for me, it kind of exemplifies where the zeitgeist is at in terms of, you know, these things that get thrown around on social media, black girl magic, slave, but it's backed up by real stuff, right? You work for it, you deserve this position, you're in it, you occupy it, well done, right? But you know, as a brand, it's kind of emblematic of this moment, which is positive. It has positive and it has negative, you know, connotations, you know. I lived in fear of insanity, poverty, dislocation, isolation, you know, because I see how that is the trajectory of so many of my foremothers and forebearers, you know.
I mean, you know, I always reference you in a lot of conversations that I had, because I remember meeting you about 2 years ago. Can I just say, the first time I ever was told that I plagiarized something, it was a profile I wrote of Lebo Mashile. And my teacher said, you know, this because I used the word misogyny, so she's a woman who fights misogyny, blah, blah, blah. And I think this was a grade 10 assignment. And my teacher said, you know, there's no way you could possibly know this name. So she called me and she said, you know, you did not write this piece.
Imagine.
And of course it was a white woman, and I told my parents and all of these different things, and I had to rewrite it. So I just wanted to say that this is...
Wow, you wrote about me and you got in trouble for it? I feel honored.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's interesting because I had a bit of a Maya moment. I had to fetch Mom Cleaner from her room the other day, and I was like, oh my God, like, you know when you meet someone who you love, and you have nothing to say, all the smart things are out, you're just like, hello, you're wonderful, and then like there's nothing to say. And just thinking of all these women who have done so much for me, just in their image, just being in there. We saw you doing Latitude, and that was just wow. I mean, you know, that kind of thing was amazing.
Latitude burned me out.
I want to talk about that, right? So, and then yesterday, if there was time, I wanted to, is Malaika here? I wanted to tell Malaika that I really, really love her and what she, just in being there as a young black woman who's like, I'm going to write about politics, I don't care, I'm going to give you analysis. The first time I read about Western Sahara and whatnot, it was hers, Malaika writing that, and just for her to be unapologetic and saying that I don't need to be 30 or whatever, you know, that was really important for me. I hadn't published. The first time I saw her, I was like, dude, like, you know, I fangirl her and she never believes me. And the thing about it, you know, Mom Cleaner said something on the stage the other day. She's here on Thursday, Wednesday.
Yes.
She said, you know, she made that little comment about, you know, how people said she's too aggressive, she's too this, she's too that. And at some point, because I also got lost taking her, and she was so nice and gracious as we were going around and we're stopping, and the window would go down, and people would be like, oh, hi, hello, yeah, you just turn corner left, go right, and that kind of thing. But I wanted to ask her just how has your visibility hurt you as a black woman? So, Label, when I met you 2 years ago, you know, we wanted to do the show, we did like a web series, and I was just like, you know, you were this person and I wanted to be like you and all of those things, and you said don't do it, you don't want to do this thing, and I couldn't understand who wouldn't want to be what Lebo Mashile was and what she is. And then, you know, you said no, it's gonna kill you, it's gonna burn you, it's gonna, you know, all of those different kinds of things. And you know, after a while you start seeing the violence of hypervisibility for black women. And it's a dichotomy. So it's either you're either super invisible as black women, or you're hyper visible. So you can never just be. You're either too much or too little as black women. And I never used to get when you'd say things, and I'm exposing you now. You are the person who taught me to say fuck you, pay me first, right? To say that I need to be paid for the work that I do. Important. If you say my work is so important, why won't you pay me? If you say I must come to your school and do 1, 2, 3, you want me to come get clappy, I must dress nice, you're all clapping for my dresses, they cost money, don't they? You know, that's part of the ambiance, to see someone who looks, you know, nice or whatever, and I need to read, I need to all those things, that cost money, right? Like he's saying, these nice projects that we do, they cost money, they take time, and then people burn out, and then there's nothing better than a dead icon. Right? Because, no, there's nothing better than a dead icon, because you can appropriate and no longer have any sense of agency. So we can all have wars about Biko's legacy because he's no longer here, right?
And we can praise him and show him the love that we couldn't show him
when
in real
life,
life,
when he was around.
Yeah.
And I always think about a Beyonce and a Rihanna. For the longest time, I mean, it's a silly example, but I always used to think, oh, Beyonce's so plastic. Why did she keep this layer in front of us, right? Rihanna's great because we see her falling out of clubs, we see her burning out, we've seen everything, so she's real. And then what happens when Rihanna dies? What happens when she's burnt out because she's given us everything?
Yep.
We're gonna celebrate her for 2 years, 2 months or 2 weeks, that, you know, in mourning, like Prince, we do that, and then she's gone.
Yep.
And then likewise, but then we want Beyonce to give. But she's sort of created that sort of sense of protection for herself. As a black woman, that's incredibly important, because the entitlement that people have to you as a black woman, because you must mother, you must love all the time, you must educate, you must do 1, 2, 3, you must never do anything for yourself. be my sister, my mother, my brother, my sister, everything must be within in black women, and it's abusive.
A lot of this is wrapped up in this new feminist wave, this new...
Black girl magic is violent, and
right.
what I say about it being violent is because, I mean, when we started Vanguard, it was because we want to be seen and we want to be visible as black women. And then, because you don't have the resources, the kind of spaces that can take over and do exactly what you're doing without black people, because you go through, I think Stephanie Jason, if she's here, she wrote a really great article in the City Press. There she is. She wrote a great article for the City Press. She talked about blackface, right? About the idea that we have black is beautiful on the front of the magazine, right? Yeah. On the front pages and all of those kind of things. But inside, the people who own these pages and are selling black magic are white people and white women. And you find that it's all these interns who are underpaid, who are doing all of the hard work, and then the white woman goes and so panel beats it and says, right, but you're the one who go finds all the cool things and hashtag black girl magic, hashtag 123, blah, 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 blah. And then we're left with nothing. We're still at a point where we harvest, you know. So that thing has been painful. And the moment where I felt it most painfully this year was the week where the hair issue happened, because all of a sudden, I land on Sunday. On Monday, I have these 5 different requests by national newspapers. Parashi, come and write about hair, blah, 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 blah. Everybody was there, you know. And I'm like, but last week I pitched you something about other things. Why are you only interested in me when I talk about hair? Like, am I only legible as a black woman when I'm talking about hair, when I'm talking about my pain, when I'm talking about why can't I talk about what I want to do? And it's incredibly violent in that then you must be this thing that you can only shout and scream and do 1, 2, 3. You can't do anything else. And that's how whiteness is able to sort of, you know, appropriate you. I found that whiteness now is very comfortable in this moment. We've been throwing stones, so let's use like a Ruth first. Last year, fuck you white people shut down the entire discussion, right? Yeah. Then the next year, it's part of the discussion, right? So whiteness knows how to co-opt. It's really disconcerting, right? Now they know how to give you your space to shout, kick and scream, you know, come and shout at us. But Mandla Langa used to tell me about how the Black Panthers used to often be invited at least once a year by white liberal organizations. Come and shout at us, get a bit of, you know, masochism where we're shouted at, you release your guilt, and then you can go back home and say, oh my God, you know, you think, I listened to it, I'm really so progressive, I'm hearing these black people, and you go back to do the same thing. You know, so just how did we become so comfortable with whiteness appropriating us through black girl magic, right? But we don't own these things. It's Clicks is now having natural hair products, all these different things. You know, they're doing all this stuff based on the hard work of black women, particularly flawless black women. I mean, they appropriate us all the time, and I guess that's why sometimes, and we'll talk about this later, I would say that I'm an Afro-pessimist, because it feels like this shit just never ends. We find new ways. Whiteness knows how to mutate itself, to co-opt, and to always benefit from whatever it is that you're doing, in whatever field it is. And sometimes that's when I'm just like, actually, I don't know about this black liberation thing, because whiteness is just, I don't know. Yeah.
We're officially, oh, please clap, everyone. We're officially halfway through this discussion. We're going to cut it in half because I know we started very late and we can't finish at midnight, you know. I understand the constraints, and we would like to open up the discussion to the floor right at the end to give people an opportunity to ask a couple of questions and make some comments. Unathi, you spoke about how you've been given the space to tell the kinds of stories that you want to tell. And you mentioned earlier that prior to us coming onto stage, that one of the narratives that keeps coming back up is this grotesque violence against black women, against black women's bodies. Can you talk about the stories that you have the freedom to be able to tell in your paper, and then also the problem with the kind when a narrative like that keeps coming back? Can you talk about that?
That's one narrative that has sort of changed my perspective on culture, on the things that we think are our traditions. It's changed by working on this paper. I mean, I'll use an example of last week's paper. A woman calls me at 5 a.m. telling me she's being stabbed by her husband. You can hear that there's drama going on. I'm asking, tell my police.
Exactly.
So she drops the phone and I'm worried what's going on now. She did mention she's in Ehanki, next to Port Elizabeth. So I send a reporter to follow up on this thing, She follows up on this thing. We eventually discovered that she was hospitalized on a Monday. She was stabbed 11 times and the husband went off to Port Elizabeth. Then you go off to Mount Alive. You have a woman who lives in a shack, well not a shack, alone. She's 52 years old. These are the stories that are not coming out in mainstream media. We get Zuma, Guptas. And let me tell you something about these stories. The Zuma, the Guptas, we become numb to this corruption. We don't understand how it affects us directly. But we have stories and people that are living in rural areas that are going through violence. It's stories that sometimes make me cry as an editor when I send someone to go and see this, and when I go personally to go see this. You know, we've gotten to a point whereby which, as a newspaper is Xhosa, the Premier's office, government follows our stories now. They will quickly go and respond wherever we report it. If we report, we had a reporter who won an award, and I think we keep getting awards for photographers. We've gotten 4 awards in our year of existence, but it's mostly photographers. That tells you something. People judging these awards can't read the stories. So, all these big media awards and the photographers keep on winning, exposing where someone was raped, where something happened, where a family of 7 is supported by a child. So we keep getting awards for pictures in a year of existence. What if the stories could be read and were understood by the judging panel?
Yes.
And what if they were translated into mainstream press?
Yes.
So these are the things that are happening in this country that worry me a lot. I try to tweet them. We try to tweet as much. We have got a website going on where we put these stories. In as much as we try to play around with words and make them catchy headlines and all those things, we're also trying to relate these things. A family, a woman and her 5 children were kicked out of their house because they are suspected of witchcraft. They have no place to stay right now. You know, these are things that we deal with on a daily basis, and you know. So when I go online and I open these websites and I look at Twitter, I'm like, Brian Molefe was crying. But I think that as a society, if we are to change Israel too, we have to focus on the people that are there, the majority there. Because if you're not focusing on the majority, they feel marginalized. And then you wonder why they keep voting for the ANC. Because the ANC responds to our stories. They run and they fix that problem. So we have to look at the bigger picture. Maybe we'll translate these stories.
Do any of them do make them? Do any of them do? I mean, are you able to set a precedent that translates into like white media? Are there stories that do end up?
Yes. Now I've got a reporter that I've dedicated, a senior reporter that it gets into the Star and it gets into the Cape Times.
Fantastic.
I don't know if that's fantastic. Because it's the thing, we go do the hard work as black people only for then it for capital to appropriate, as it always does, no matter what it is. Whether it's the mines, whether it's media, it is always us doing the hard work only for capital or white capital to appropriate that surplus.
So, okay, so let's get into this monster then of, are we really seeing the demise of white supremacist capitalist patriarchy or not? I just want to just map out some things over the last, 2 years, right? So we start with Roads Must Fall, leads to a demand to decolonize literature. Then we see Fees Must Fall. Beginning of this year, we see all kinds of crazy white in the closet racists jumping out. Bo Penny Sparrow, Bo Chris Hart, Gareth Cliff again recently, Vanessa Watwat. I mean, this year, the death of so many artists, creators, icons, state capture, public protector report. I mean, it just, every week the onslaught has been relentless. The rent, the economy, Trump, like it's been ongoing. It's been, you know, the relentless rape of black lesbians continues. These headlines continue, they persist. If you are a believer in the esoteric, as I am, please allow me to bore you a bit. So numerology says that this year is a 9-year, right? 2016, 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 6 is 9. Né? So it's a 9, the years work in 9-year cycles. So what we're seeing right now is the end of a cycle. Next year is a 1 year. 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 7 is 1. It's a new beginning, right? So hence this year we're seeing, if you believe, you know sometimes I take all kinds of theories, add them up and come up with my own reasons. That's one point. We're also seeing how the growth of social media is impacting on national and international, conversations. All of a sudden, you have all of these people who haven't had a voice who now have to be factored in, and not that everyone has a voice. We still, this voice needs to grow and still needs to expand, right? But it's enough of a voice to push back so that white supremacy, patriarchy, the capitalism have to now deal with their effects, have to be held accountable by individuals who are sitting in their houses, sitting on their toilets, who have something to say, So, I mean, the pendulum then swings in the opposite direction, right? Enough of that happens. Enough women start making noise. Enough black people and people of color start making noise. Black Lives Matter, peace must fall. Enough queer people start making noise. And then white supremacist capitalist patriarchy says, no, but I'm still the boss. Trump is still going to be president. We're going to make our choice. We're going to assert ourselves even.
Afro-pessimism, and this is not Afro-pessimism of sort of white liberals about, oh, Africa will never rise, blah, that kind of thing, but Afro-pessimism, the black radical thought, school of thought, which is sort of the idea that the only way for this to end is for the world to end, right? Either you destroy the world or it destroys you. So this is the kind of, I think, I'm gonna, without shading anyone or anything like that, I think there's a particular kind of trope, or you'll see the particular aesthetic that a lot of fallists embody, right? There's a kind of look that you need to have, and those tend to be the Afro-pessimists, the radical, we must have the hair, and a slap, we don't do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 because we're like that radical and that kind of thing. But the point being that I think that idea that blackness as social death, that the master-slave dialectic never ends. It sort of just mutates itself. So you start sort of with slavery and using, particularly, if we use the African-American sort of experience, the slave experience, you move from slavery, from that you have sort of Jim Crow, which is with lynchings, Jim Crow, you have the civil rights era. So you kind of never really move out of this dynamic where there's the master and slave, then you get to mass incarceration. So there's always that kind of dynamic because we haven't sort of had a knockout win. It's almost on somebody else's terms that we're given a piece of freedom. Just like in South Africa, right? We move progressively from different states of oppression, but fundamentally we still remain oppressed. I think perhaps the moment I felt most depressed about fallism, we're in a safe space as black people, the capture issues, right? Where you think this is the moment now, finally, we're going to take this on, we're gonna kill this whole thing. And then you realize, Kanti, this was all already laid out for you long ago. You're just a pawn in this thing. You're about to, your parents are about to kill you. You could have gotten a criminal record, all of these different kinds of things. And you're like, okay, but why was I doing this? And that, I think And then I think that's why many followers go in a state of either being in and out at various points because we're disillusioned, and then we go back in, and then we go back out, and all of those things. Many of us go through that kind of cycle, and you just, I think what I appreciate for me as Afro-pessimism, because it's not a liberatory framework. It's not like Black consciousness that says one day you will prevail. Because I sometimes as a Black person, I hate the burden of hope. I hate to always be told that one day you must always be positive about your situation. Sometimes I'm like, no, this is shit. That's it. It's a shit situation, and that's it.
But then you're creating platforms like this,
yes,
right?
and it's almost like
And you're still doing the work.
I'm a half-hearted Afro-pessimism because I don't necessarily, in my heart of hearts, I don't know if we'll ever be free, truly free. I don't know, and the way I rationalize it is to sort of say, if I'm gonna go down, I'm not gonna go down alone. So if you're gonna fight me, white supremacy, at least you're not gonna go down without a scratch. You can't just, that's all I need. That's my only,
I get that.
that's all I hope for, because I see how we continue to have the same struggles. I mean, the history of the world is a very long history. We're sort of, in millennia of the world, and this is only 500 years of blackness, right? When blackness was created in modernity. So I don't know. So I don't really, many moments, I don't really have hope for Black people, but it's fine. It's okay. It's just I'm here, and it's moments of intense joy of being a Black person. Like I said, like the first night, for example, where you're dancing and your sister petining and you're doing all these different things, I feel like, damn, shit, it's nice to be a Black person. Like it's amazing to be a Black person. I feel real immense joy, mostly with Black creativity. And there's other moments where I feel intense sort of despair at what it is to be a Black person. So that's why I just say I'm a half-hearted Afro-pessimist. I'll do what I can for me to resist is to live. And there's not much more I can do than that.
Munati, your take?
Yes, I'm always.
Are you ever?
Yeah.
Well, okay, well let's start with,
Yeah.
do you think we're seeing the fall of white supremacist capitalist patriarchy? And where do you, where do you kind of locate yourself, your work, your political creative project and contribution within that, if at all?
I try to distance myself as much as possible, but because of economics, capital, it's hard to imagine it falling anytime soon. I think when I started using this Xhosa, I thought I could escape a number of things with it, and I thought maybe we could create opportunities as Zezetu, whereby in which we could, write more books in our languages, actually strengthen our own newspapers. But then you find that at the bottom of all of these things is money. All these things are driven by money. You try to resuscitate a newspaper like Imposa Benzundu, which died in 1997, and you find that there are 12 people who own the rights to the name. And when you try to do that, they'll say, no, also pass, give me 500,000.
Wow.
Things like that. Or you will try and dig the history of a writer who was prominent back then, and the family say, no, you're not going to dig into our history for free. What are we going to get? So there are a number of challenges when it comes to but I have hope. I think, like religion, you have to have some form of hope. Yeah, you have to have some form of hope that we can change this. And one of the most worrying things for me is how disconnected we are as Black people, how easy it is for us to hate one another, how intolerant we are to one another. And I think one of the things that I've been actively teaching myself is to be able to stay in a Wandering Abatambi. Even if I don't appreciate your narrative or the work that you do, I will stay with you and I will try to understand you and I will see how I can work with you. I work with a lot of people like that across the country, because I believe that if we are this intolerant, we're not going to get anywhere. We have to just so with various backgrounds, lots of baggage that we have, and we have to get to a point where we can tolerate one another and work together. If we want to overcome this thing of trying to always offer a better argument against the next person, or everything is an argument, it's not going to take us anywhere. I think the competitiveness, I was talking to one of the presenters earlier this morning that I think it's flawed from our education system that we are taught to compete from grade R, first, second, third. You are competing throughout. Your life is just this massive marathon. Yesterday there was a question that asked, how can you divorce, how do you liberate women without leaving men behind? And the answer was, it's a marathon, you must run. Keep running, you'll catch up with you. And, so
That wasn't what she was saying.
no, I'm really loosely interpreting the answer. Maybe the person who asked the question would understand it, but I'm just saying that we shouldn't be competing. When you are in a war, you cannot be competing with the people you are on the same side. You're turning your gun like I'm chef. I don't like the way you dress. I don't like the way you talk. Oh, can I now move? Oh, so you need to focus on for me, that's where hope resides, in us just finding this common ground here.
Yeah. And I think for, I mean, I'm certainly not an organizer of this festival, but just participating has been so affirming because, you set a deliberate agenda to create a safe space, right? So it means that we actually can love each other, I mean, dynamics between black people are deep and are hectic. Dynamic between black writers and creatives are woo! There are small hells between us brewing in these rooms, but because the space is safe and because there was a code of conduct that was set that made sure that there was no violence, no homophobia, no sexual violence, no verbal violence, no transphobia, no misogyny against women, So because you created that kind of a space, it makes it easy for us to be with each other and to love each other even across differences. Even if that love is just, I'm smiling at you and I can listen to you say 5 sentences. I haven't heard you say that in 10 years since that time. If that's the love I'm capable of, that's my love for today. I could show it and you gave us that space, which is wonderful.
I don't know, in life, the people you love the most hurt you the most.
Absolutely.
And I think as black people, we hurt each other the most, right? Because I think white people are there, we don't expect much of them, so, but amongst us, there are the expectations, the hurts, the disappointments. I'll give an example of a way in which I recognize where I was fucky to someone else, right? Years ago, there's a good, there's a writer. So I wanted to study, I would have liked to do like a creative field. I would have wanted to do anthropology, blah, 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 all these kind of things. And my parents were like, no child of ours is going to do a PA. Not all degrees are created equally. You're going to do the right thing, right?
Black
and no, rightfully so. I think our parents know the difficulty. It's not like these things are just easy, right? We know that the creative space is like, we know how many people are paupers, die poor, and whatnot. So I think I appreciate and I understand why they have the fears they have for us. And I think we should, it's a consequence of where we are.
It's real.
And so because I had sort of put back aside a lot of my dreams for myself in terms of what I wanted to do, a friend of mine who had been sitting with in the same class, in economics class, she now is launching a book. And so I remember going to the launch, I forced myself to go there, but I was not happy. I was not happy for her. I couldn't be happy for her. I bought a copy of the book, didn't read it. And it wasn't, the point being that it was because I felt disappointment in myself. Because I felt like it showed me up too much because I wanted to do these things and I told myself that no, I've studied this and this kind of thing, so it's not possible. Get over it, your dream is not possible. Now here she was with the same background as me, also couldn't do that. She was also doing an economics degree and whatnot, and now she was doing it. So what was my excuse? So that was, it took me a long time to recognize why it was difficult for me to be happy for her, because I was disappointed and hurt with myself and my dreams, because she showed me up in that way. And I think that sometimes I can't be upset about, I don't know, J.K. Rowling. I mean, she's too far away from my experience. But because this person was right here, and we had the same experience, the same barriers, and then she had done something, I couldn't feel happy for her because I was too hurt for myself.
And the system also breeds this mentality of scarcity, particularly amongst black people, right? That there isn't enough.
Yeah.
So there's only space for one black person, there's only space for one black woman. You know, if you occupy that space, that means that I'll never have it. You know, not that you occupy that space, which means it's possible, which means I can create my own space, you know? Hey, okay, it feels like we're debriefing 500 years. You know, which is a lot. We're left with 10 minutes, and I'd like to give an opportunity for 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Tabi.
Yes. I'm a little sleepy, sorry. I'm sorry, Panashe, that you feel so hopeless. But for me, this whole weekend, because it is about something that is my whole entire life, I'm a publisher, so to see this thing around books has given me a lot of hope. But I must also say that, just to talk about the state of the native.
Yeah.
I was at the airport when I went to the concert, I don't want to mention by name, in Durban. And I was waiting in the security check at the airport, and there's 2 white men behind me. And the one says to the other, one of my consultants, and I didn't even hear the rest of the sentence. I was stuck at how can he own a whole person? How can he feel so comfortable saying it? And I realized that is one of our problems, that what we inherited. Ownership is so foreign to us. Ownership is so foreign. And this white man, he can own a consultant because his people have been owning people for years, man. And I sit here, and if he's got a problem in his business, he can call his uncle or his father. I struggled. I was doing my business tax things this month, and I struggled, and I can't call my dad. He's a policeman. E-filing is foreign to him. He still queues to do his returns. So I'm not asking a question. I suppose I'm making a comment and saying that one of the things we need to do as natives is to start shifting our minds and believing that we can own. I mean, it's still very difficult for me to, I remember when I had a personal assistant, it took me forever to call her my assistant. I kept saying the girl that works with me, because it is such a heavy thing to say my assistant, like, hey, mine. It's not a thing. I always imagined I was going to go to school, I was going to go to university, I was going to work for someone. The idea of having a business and having people work for me, it is completely strange to me. It is something I'm trying to settle into. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but I do know that we have to believe in ownership. We have to believe that this shit is ours to take.
You want to respond to that?
Okay, so just understand me when I say half-hearted Afro-pessimism, right? So I'm saying, I don't know, I can't say for sure that we will prevail or we will, but I'm still here, right? I'm still here, still do the damn thing. I don't know why. The point is, I don't know why I do it, I just do because, and I guess that's why, even though theoretically in my mind, this concept has really captured me to say, I'm hopeless, but I'm here, I still do the things that I do. And I think that's I think it's like blackness is like faith, there's no proof for it, or the struggle, there's no proof, but there's the everyday. I choose to live in the everyday of blackness as opposed to thinking in the future, this is gonna happen. The everyday is sort of what sustains me. The fact that I'm here every day is what, I guess that's my hopefulness, but I don't know what will happen in the future. I think the thing about ownership, I would like to challenge that a little bit. because I think there's something, I don't know if I want to aspire to the way in which white people think, like my boy, my girl, my, you know, that kind of thing. There's something inherently dehumanizing in the way in which people must be owned or whatever. Why can't we relate to each other? What is wrong with saying someone works with me? I do think it's a problem that those white men, it's not the problem that we aren't saying, it's the problem that they are saying that they own people. Because I think if we're talking about decolonization, it's not about us becoming the new bosses, right? We want to remove boss and boy and girl and all of those kinds of things. For me, it's not about us moving to Sandton and leaving Soweto or whatever. There should not be the Sandton, Soweto, Alex divide, right? That kind of thing is the work of reimagining, because I think that's what scares people the most about this decolonization thing, because people are saying everything. I think metaphorically, that's why there's the actual burning, but metaphorically, when we say things need to burn and we need to start afresh, it's saying that we need to rethink how we relate to each other and not aspire. I think that's why many of us were upset with Julius Malema when he said, oh, black people just want to live like white people. It's an inhumane existence that they live, to treat people the way that they do. How do you live the way that you do? I mean, for me, the fact that people live with these high fences, and you have something to swipe in. I mean, where I live, I swipe in to get in, and then when there's a security, I swipe in, there's a security at the bottom, then on the floor, there's a particular, I swipe in, and then there's a burglar bar, and then I go into my place. What is that saying? I think that is a confession of guilt. There's a confession that I have something that I should not have, and there are people who justly or rightly would want a stake in this thing. So I need to build up all of these walls to protect myself from all of these people who've been excluded from all the privileges that I'm benefiting from. So I don't think that, and which is why white people, they know. There's a line in Sade's, is it Lagos Rock, where she says something like, "Pity the day I should do the same to you." That is why white people are so afraid, because they know. They know what they're doing. In their heart of hearts, they know that this is bullshit. And I think when I was younger, that was my version of black consciousness, which was, I also want to live like a white person, but every day I also have to start thinking about it. It's really inhumane. So time is not on our side.
Time is not on our side. Can we take two more, one and then two over there in the corner? I got you, my brother.
Sambonani? Njani? So on the topic of the burden of hope and hopelessness, and when you said that you've lost hope for black people as an expression of a half-hearted Afro-pessimism, it hit me that it's not black people that I've lost hope for. I've lost hope in whiteness. I've lost hope for whiteness. And I realize that it's a project that we've been chasing. I can't redeem whiteness. And I'm done. Yeah, I'm so done. And so I don't know if that's Afro-pessimism, but it's just the project of decolonization right now is saying footstep to whiteness in all its forms.
Last comment, my brother.
Let me take this one. You can take this one.
Question that is linked to a comment. Words like native, tribe, and so on in literature are charged with a lot of meaning.
Yes.
And a lot of it is pejorative. So I was wondering, why did you choose to title the panel discussion Native Life Today and not Black Life Today?
So, well, one, it was obviously a play on the actual book called Native Life. So we just added in 2016. But then you're entering a deeper conversation about what we call ourselves, because many of our African brothers and sisters do not call themselves black. I now, personally, I no longer call myself or I'm a little bit finicky about African because African has been emptied out of its contents. If you just put Kente cloth on it, it's African now. White settlers are African, and I'm sorry, I can't share that with you. I'm black. I am black, and it's a particular experience that you do not share with me, and it's a very politicized sort of thing. Africa has become this sort of like, oh, African foods, African, and I don't know, and we can discuss what that means. But really, the short answer is just was a play on the title of Soul Blakey's 1916 book.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our discussion. I know that, the conversation cannot be wrapped up in, you can't even really begin the conversation in an hour. You almost need a conference in and of itself, a festival, Imbizo. Yeah, a year-long Imbizo with food and funding and lots of naps. And alcohol. But I want to thank you, Unati, I want to thank you, Panashe, for igniting these ideas in us. And I know that many of us are writers, are lovers of words and books. Many of us are creators. Many of us are employed in 9-to-5 plantations. We are parents. We are lovers. We are doing the work every single day. We are doing the damn thing. So that's where the conversation actually carries on. You are living the conversation. And we're grateful that at least we could create a safe space to start to interrogate some of these issues, because we know that as we move through space and time as black people in South Africa in 2016, going into 2017, 99.999% of the time the space is not safe. So we hope that this little home is something that you carry in your heart as you have to fight these random battles that you are going to have to fight. Can we please give it up for Panashe? We're gonna go straight away, I think, into the next discussion. Is that right? Or will we take a break?
Just a break.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break. Are we gonna have Zuko back now, or will they open up the next one?
They're gonna open up the next one.
Okay, so we'll take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come straight back.